We've just been through a major timeline loop that began around Easter weekend and closed just a couple days ago. Now, these loops are kind of hard to see until we've come out of it. And when we come out of it, it feels like, people say there's been a shift or we've made a timeline jump, which is true ish. But you remember a couple months ago how Spirit gave me this whole concept of side quests, timeline loops, to where there's a collective timeline and we're moving forward. But at certain points, we'll go through these little sort of sideways loops that allow us to have certain experiences, learn, heal, grow, do all the karmic stuff before we're back on the collective timeline. And that's what has just happened. I'm going to unpack the specifics of this timeline loop and what we've just been through. But for the overview, it's important to understand that what these timeline loops do is they give us all opportunities to clean up whatever messiness exists in us that will affect the collective timeline. Now, what I mean by that is, let's say if someone has very firm beliefs rooted in wounding that the bad guys always win, for example, that will limit them to what they can experience. If that is their belief, if that is their reality, and if that's related to wounding they haven't cleared, that is all they can experience. And if enough people have those same shared experiences, then it's like dead weight, preventing the collective timeline from moving into a place where they can experience something different. This is where it gets a little tricky because, well, we never have to personally wait for every single person to get to the point, to get to the same place. Individually, we can move on. But when we're doing this group project thing, it gets a little sticky. And that's why healing and this emotional work is important for everybody. We are trying to collectively raise the timeline for a better collective outcome. We've been doing it for decades. We are doing it. We're going to get there. But it feels really bumpy right now. So every time these little side quest timeline loops happen, it feels like Persephone going into the underworld. We're journeying into the upside down. We're being triggered and put through something so that we can have our learning, growth, healing experience. And when we're done, we pop right back out the other end, and then the collective timeline moves forward faster. That's why people have been saying, I feel a shift, things feel faster, it feels like we're back on track, I'm ready for something to happen. So yeah, this is very good news. And this is what this is going to look like in this time period. We're going to keep going through these various loops to do our collective group project to move the group timeline forward. So I'm going to unpack what this particular little timeline loop looked like for me, because I know when I was out here on TikTok talking about my various things, I know a lot of you felt the same way. A lot of us were going through very similar themes. And also the reason I share my personal experiences is I find for most of us, we learn better when we can see very specifically how it applies to someone's life. So just before Easter weekend, we had some big energies come in. You'll notice I talked about energy waves. I always talk about energy waves because I physically process them somatically in my body. Now, not everyone can feel them. So if you didn't feel them, you're not missing out. That's just not how you experience them. But typically they come through, they can cause a lot of symptoms. Some people have migraines. I have migraines. Just this exhaustion that hits you out of nowhere, lots of weird physical symptoms, autoimmune flare-ups, things of that nature. Now, remember how many people leading up to Easter felt this sense of anticipation. Something big is going to happen. Something's about to pop. And yeah, Easter weekend was huge. The Pope passed, which may or may not have been precipitated by J.D. Vance. But obviously that was a big cultural event with huge implications. Now that was not related to the energy wave. But that wasn't the only thing we were feeling the sense of anticipation from. When new energies come in, our bodies sense them as new, and we can feel anxious, nervous, threatened maybe, and a sense that something is coming. Now, for me personally, if you've been watching my videos, you know about my religious trauma, you know about my feminine rage and the patriarchy and how much religion plays a role in that. So the Pope's passing was an opportunity for me to process a lot of that wounding, which I did several videos on. I was also personally triggered by several things that showed me where I'm at internally as past aspects of self are being invited to be reconfigured. I was being shown how my attachment to this community as a leader and the role I have carved out for myself as a leader, in conjunction with past versions of self that were running the show. When I was very politically awake and aware in my 20s, when it seemed like nobody else was, I was screaming into the void. I was desperately looking for people to fight the fight with me. So looking at these two things side by side, I could see how this was a fulfillment of my youthful desires, yes. And I think it's what's made me such a good galvanizing leader because, y'all, I was born for this. I've been doing this for decades. But I was also shown how if I'm too much in the place of my wounded 20-year-old self, 25-year-old self, that would limit me to only being able to experience that timeline, that we have to unite together and fight a common enemy. So you can see how that's been both very beneficial, but at a certain point, that will hold me back. So I had to do some healing, some integrating, and some upgrading to allow myself to lead this group in such a way that we are providing for a way forward. We're not only about how to cope with the impossibility of now. I do not find it a coincidence at all that the day before I felt the timeline loop close, I made a post where I said, "Hello 4am Club, this is how I am choosing to move forward as a leader, as a teacher, as a healer." And it was all about the expansion side of a spiritual journey, not just the traumatic, chaotic awakening, not just the healing. We're going to move into joy. We're going to move into creativity. We're going to move into embodiment. I'm going to get my ass on stage and see you live and in person. It felt so good to stake my claim and tell the universe, hey, this is who I am. This is how I'm moving forward. This is the new, current, integrated me. Ready, let's go. Now I share these personal stories because this I have found is the best way to go through a timeline loop and to work with the energies that come in. They are not just here to change the body, poem the body, kerfuffle things in the political public sphere. They are here for transformation. So as we pay attention to what is triggered within us, and as we do that work to figure out what's going on, what feels like it's misaligned, what's out of date, what wounds are screaming to be healed, as we do that work, that allows us to then heal and transform. So then we harness the energy, not just the healing, not just the, revealing of the shadows, but the momentum, the juice. So you can see how individually this loop took me in one way and now I'm ready to jet forward. So if you can imagine billions of people doing the same, that's how we have our timeline shifts, our timeline jumps, and that's how things feel accelerated now. There is one other key aspect of this timeline loop I forgot to mention, and that is last week where we all felt very floaty, very disconnected, very what is happening, where am I, what day is it? That is a huge sign that we are shifting timelines. And in fact, I got that information. Those who are ready to ascend are being lifted. Remember, I did that video. So those of us who were taking the opportunities to do the healing, do the work, make the change, we felt ourselves being lifted. And now it feels like we are plopped down. We're plopped down. Things feel very accelerated. Like it really is just fresh new energy. We're ready to go. So keep up the fantastic work, fam. You are amazing. This community is amazing. I am in awe of us. Now, if you want help doing your shadow work, as always, I have the emotional support playlist, over 50 videos. It's a lot. It's here on TikTok. If you're on YouTube, sorry, you got to go find it on TikTok. I also have a free shadow work guidebook, and I have an emotional support, no, what's it called? Emotional mastery course. Those are at my website. You can get them at the link in the bio, or if you're on YouTube, it will be in the caption. So this is how we ascend. This is it. We heal our shit. We manifest, we come together, we harness the energies that are coming through, and we create the new future together.